It gets 70 miles per gallon on the highway. It goes 0 to 60 in 10.4 seconds. It weighs just over 1,800 pounds, well under a ton, and has 14-inch wheels. This was the first hybrid car to come to US shores, well before the Toyota Prius, models 2000 through 2006, 25 years old now. Built in the same factory as the Acura NSX and the Honda S2000. Had a lot of early tech just making its way into cars at the time, like auto stop, Honda's lean burn technology, uncompromising features like engine parts made of plastic, an oil pan made of magnesium, and many other things. This car was so uncompromising that when it was brought over in the year 2000, you could only get a manual transmission. The automatic CVT did not come till later. And it had one option then, air conditioning. If you wanted cold air, you had to add it as an option. That's how uncompromising this car is. This is the 2000 Honda Insight. What I believe is probably one of the ultimate cult classic cars that's ever been made. Hated by many, unknown to many, but absolutely loved by a few that still own them. And there's just a few thousand of these that are still on the road. This was a commercial flop. The word on the street is that Honda lost money on every one that they sold. Yet here it is, 25 years later. And in this video, I am very proud to talk to you about why the Honda Insight is still great in 2025. Well, let's get into it. This is my car. I've owned 5 of these. If you know this channel or look back at some older videos, you'll see several dozen on the Honda Insight. I've had, as I said, 5 of them. I love these cars. Owned them for about 5 years now, discovered them accidentally, fell in love, and have built and restored a bunch. And this is my current car, a blue 5-speed. This car is cool. It's kind of like Honda was given a blank check. Some engineers said, let's create the most uncompromising machine that will achieve gas mileage. And they did. And they only had one goal in mind. It was to achieve good gas mileage. Other than that, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what it looked like. It didn't matter that it could only hold 2 people. It didn't matter that much of the car was made of plastic. It didn't matter that it was not the most comfortable thing, nor the most quick. None of that mattered. It was all about a passion and uncompromising, passion and vision to make something that was unlike anything that ever was. And they did it. It is still a great car in 2025. And I'm so much in love with this car and excited to make this video. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the features of this car, the performance, the efficiency, the reliability. Talk about some of the negatives of owning one now, 25 years later, do a short test drive, and kind of give a sum up. So let's jump right into it. This really is kind of like a lab experiment that Honda had somewhere that was locked up and really not ready yet for the roads, but someone said, let's just let it out and see what happens. Performance-wise, this is pretty bad. As I mentioned earlier, 0 to 60 in 10.4 seconds. Not great, as you saw in my license plate. 73 horsepower. That's a 1.0 liter gas engine combined with a hybrid engine. And does it move? No. I will say from 0 to 40 is fine. Now, my particular car here has a lithium battery that's been added and engineered to the car, and it also has a few software modifications that give it a little more pep in its step, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Still, by no means is this car fast, but it's quick enough to do the job. But that's not what this car is about, is it? This car is about efficiency. And just as a demonstration, I'll show you my current tank and gas mileage. And it is winter here as I'm filming this in Georgia, so we've had 30, 40 degree weather. And so what you're seeing here is the current tank. I am halfway through this tank, as you can see, and I've done 322.8 miles. My average over those 322.8 miles is 64.6 miles per gallon. Pretty great. Again, Honda rated this 70 highway, 61 city. So this is mostly city driving for me. It's actually all city driving. And we're at 64.6. So I'm doing really, really great with this car. This one has 234,000 miles. And my average in that lifetime mileage is 69 miles per gallon. Not bad at all. Now, if you watch some of my older videos, you'll see that I actually have achieved up to 82 miles per gallon all city driving in this particular car, which means I could drive from about Atlanta, Georgia to about Chicago, Illinois on one tank, never stopping the car once, which I would not want to do. It's not the most comfortable car to drive long distances, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But nonetheless, you can go over 800 miles on a tank. So this car, again, I'm halfway through. I've done 322 miles, and I've got another 322 miles to go. That's what this is all about, efficiency. Performance, as I said, not the greatest. Efficiency makes up for it. Reliability, I will say that the reliability of Hondas is, as you probably know, is fantastic. This car and the other four that I've owned, there hasn't been a lot that's broken. The big issues with these cars is, number one, the hybrid batteries. They last 5 to 10 to 15. Some people have even coaxed 20 years out of them. You can grid charge, but that is a costly replacement. They start around $1,500 and go all the way up to $4,000 or $5,000 if you get some of the newer lithium options. And then the other issue with these cars is the transmission. It is very common. They are fragile. They tend to break around 180,000 miles. Now, this car is a 5-speed, and it does have one of those fragile transmissions. This one was just rebuilt, so I've got nothing to worry about. But the bearings and some of the synchros in these are pretty well known for failing, so that is an issue. But guys, other than those two things and, fading 25-year-old paint, this is classic Honda. Stuff just works and doesn't break and holds up. Next thing to talk about is the room. This is a great roomy car. Now, I've had people, I was in the Food Line parking lot a couple months back, and I was getting out of it, and this lady saw me, and she said, "Is that the new Honda electric car?" Which just kind of tells you how little people know about these. And I said, no, ma'am, this is an old hybrid. And she said, "How do you fit in that thing?" So people look at this car, and it's quite small, and they wonder about, the room. But I would just say it's very, very roomy. Now, yes, you can't fit more than two people. This is the back. Decent trunk, not huge, but you can fit some things in there. But, in terms of room for the passenger, it's quite roomy. It's very simple. In terms of room for the driver, very, very roomy. I am 6'2", and I've got easy 4 or 5 inches from my head to the top of the roof here. So it is a very, very roomy and spacious car. And then just in terms of the features of this car, it's very minimalistic. There's, you have your windows switches here. You've got your power mirror, cubby. None of these blanks do anything. I have this rigged up. It actually is a water sprayer that I added. I have a video on that of why I did that. This is a steering wheel. This particular wheel is from the S2000. Now, a lot of people say they have the same wheel as the S2000, which actually isn't true. The actual wheel that comes with the Insight is foam padded and soft. This was transferred from an S2000 into this car. They look similar, but the S2000 one is leather and hard, whereas the Insight one is foam and soft. But they look the same. The airbag is the same, so it's very similar. You have the gauge cluster here with your typical things. And then, of course, there's air conditioning vents. Some basics. We have a radio. The car comes with 2 speakers. I've added 2 others. All of this is aftermarket. This is to maintain my lithium battery. And then, of course, we have the transmission, the shifter. This is also aftermarket. These switches are aftermarket. This all goes into, I have all other videos that discuss what all of that is. E-brake, little cubby hole, and then we have a glove box, a few scratches and nicks. And that's really about all. Very minimalist. This is a comfortable place to be. The seats are not the most comfortable for long term, but around town they really do great. The suspension on this car is pretty basic and you feel everything, but again, it's not about comfort here, guys. It's about efficiency and the experience. And then, another great thing about this car, and I mentioned this in my CRX video I guess it was about a week ago. This is very similar in that way that the use of space in this car is just it's really wonderful. And what I mean by that is because the cabin is so small, you have great visibility. Because the cabin is so small, the air conditioning and heat are so efficient. Because the cabin is small, if you get some decent speakers, the sound in this car is absolutely beautiful. It's probably one of my best cars that I've ever had in terms of sound. I have some very good quality speakers in the front and also in the back behind the seats, which actually provides some, you can feel the bass in your back. And it's such a small cabin that the sound quality is really great. And then, the last thing to say about the car is it's just cool. I'll take you for a test drive, and a short test drive. We'll go down the road a little bit. And it's just a cool, unique car. Of all the cars that I've ever owned, I've never owned 5 of the same car. And why do I still own one of these all these years later? I just love it. It's probably my favorite car to get in and drive. And when I get in it just puts a smile on my face. There really is nothing like this car. So let's go for a little test drive, and I'll kind of end this video here and as we drive around a little bit and talk about some of the negatives. The first thing, this is really any old car, but you get something quirky like this that they really only made a few thousand of. And there's going to be some issues in terms of, things breaking and getting old. The inside is quirky. You kind of have to become your own mechanic if you get one of these. I have talked to a number of mechanics who said, I will not work on that car. And that's just, again, because they're quirky. Some of the parts you can't get anymore. There is risk of death when you start taking the battery apart. There's a Honda branded sign there that says, you could die, you will die or get injured, be careful. So, working on a car that if I touch the wrong way or I'm going to get killed, it doesn't appeal to a lot of people, and I get it. So you kind of have to, because of that quirky and rare nature, you have to kind of become your own mechanic. Another negative thing about the car, reliability, I mentioned that, and that's a minor thing, but the batteries and the transmissions do need work sometimes. Let me pause talking about negatives here, and I'll do a quick acceleration run. I'm going to go into second gear here. And now, again, the car isn't quick, but I'm in second gear now. I'm at 3,000. I'm going to floor it. 1, 2, 3. It's now floored. So, not quick, but it will move, especially in first, second, and somewhat third gear. So the car will get out of its own way. Again, I have a couple hacks to this that have made it quicker than it should be, but you saw that demonstration. It's no slouch, especially in the lower speeds. Back to the negatives. A couple things about this car that are unfortunate. It really is a hated car. I've met so many people that just don't like these cars. They know enough about them to just kind of not like it. There's a real stigma about these cars also. There's, people will accuse you of certain sexual orientation or political orientation, or I've been told I'm a tree hugger. And, it's like, none of those things are why I'm owning this car. I just think it's cool. But it's really interesting, even just posting like on Facebook and some of the socials, I've had people say, even on a website called, or a Facebook group called Underwhelming Cars. About a month ago, I posted this car, and I had over 1,000 comments and over 10,000 views. And just in those comments, I was reading through them, and a lot of people were like, yeah, man, that's the coolest thing. But there were a lot of people that were like, oh, yeah, you're this. Oh, yeah, you're that. So there really is a stigma. The car's kind of small and feminine. I've had people joke at me, you must not be insecure about your masculinity if you're able to drive that. So, it's just interesting the stigma you get, that, I might even get some of that in the comments. People just have a particular feeling about this car. And then another negative about this car is you really do get bullied in this car. And I said that again about the CRX because it's true, but I've just found in any small car, I think people are so used to seeing massive SUVs and trucks and such that it's almost like the brain is no longer able to process a tiny car on the road. And so people, I get pulled out in front all the time. People pull out in front of me, cut me off. It happens regularly. You really have to drive defensively. And I think the second part of it, one is that people don't see it. And then another thing is that people they see it, but they're like, that won't hurt me. That's tiny. And I'm driving a $5,000 or 5,000 pound SUV. I'll do another little acceleration here. Second gear, I got it floored. So it moves. Not fast, but quick enough. So the bullying is a thing, and you've got to stop at every four-way stop sign. And, if you're at a red light and it turns green, I always look both ways and see if anyone's coming, because people just don't notice you. And then, probably the final negative that I would say about this car, and this is subjective, but just because it's little, you can only hold 2 people. So if you need a third person, you can't do that. And there's not a lot of cargo space, and it's not the most comfortable car just because it is so uncompromising. It weighs nothing. So if I'm on the interstate and a 18-wheeler drives by full of logs, it will push the car off the road. You've got to hold on and be aware. But all that said, the 2000 Honda Insight, 25 years later, is still a great car in 2025. If you can get past the negatives, be your own mechanic, deal with the quirks, you will find a car that is just completely uncompromising and an absolute joy to drive. And as I said, that is why I love this car. It is so purpose-built. There's so much passion put into this vehicle, and you feel it with every mile you drive. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you watching this. Peace to you. God bless you. And I'd love to hear comments and discuss if you have any thoughts on it. Take care.